Thank you so much, Dan. Yeah, so like you said, my name is Michael MAUGHON, and I grew up out at Doe River Gorge, and I have always loved animals. My God-given talent is doing flips. I am very good at doing things that most people won't even try. That was what I pursued for my whole high school career. When I was about to go to college, I decided I didn't want to go to college, and I wanted to join the circus, which I think my dad was a little bit more supportive of. I think mom at first was like, I don't know if that's a good idea. But I've always really disliked school. It was very hard for me because I'm a very tactile learner. I need to touch it and see it and feel it to be able to learn it. And they just didn't teach me that way. So during school, I always hated learning because I wasn't doing it the way I could. So I always felt like I was like, I'm not very smart. I have a really hard time with this. And then after high school, I moved to New York for a little bit to perform and then to Las Vegas. And then during that process, I learned how I learn. And that is up close and personal. I was a tactile learner. I guess I have a little bit of time. Let me see. So a little bit of what I did in Vegas. I don't know if y'all want to see it, but I'll show it. Here's a little bit of some of the stuff I used to do. There's no volume, but this was an act. Oh, it's not on the screen. What's going on? Hold on. Technical difficulties. All right, we'll do it this way. We'll just start it there. So this was a $120 million theater at probably the nicest casino in Las Vegas. I was lucky to be a soloist, so I got to do a lot of my own stuff and make up my own choreography. I'm the one on the tree right there. This is an act called Cage, and it was a fun just solo act. It was like 3 minutes long, and I just got to play. And I got paid to play for a living. The center stage where that tree is about 20 feet tall. And that stage can go 27 feet under the water, and it can go 15 feet out of the water on hydraulics. So depending on the time of the show, you can either run out and you'll fall into a pool, or you can run across dry land, which was really cool. So this was such a blessing to be able to do because that was like my dream during high school. And so I skipped college and just decided to go do that first. And that was always what I was really good at. And that was something I loved to do. I'm glad I got the opportunity to do it. But I was not following Christ during this time of my life. I was absolutely pursuing what I wanted to, and I was obsessed with doing this stuff. That was my entire life, my entire identity, and I was really good at it. When I got to Las Vegas, I ended up having a finger injury. It seems super minor, but I got avascular necrosis in my hand, and like that, it ended my career. I couldn't do this stuff anymore. So I had spent the past 18 years training, and my entire high school career, I was training probably 8 hours a day to do this stuff. And so overnight, that disappeared, and it was gone. And I was mad at God, I was mad at everybody. And it was hard because I'm like, this is the only thing I'm good at. There's only one thing you can do with the massive amounts of pointless skills that I possess. And so couldn't do that anymore, was super stressed. And then God was just he's like, this isn't it. And so after that, I was like, I'm still gonna do it. Started doing it again, ended up having to have hand surgery. And then I tore a hernia that I had already had and had another surgery. And that took me out for over a year of training. And I was like, okay, God, you win. And so during that time, God was calling me back to him, and I started looking at my passions. What did I love to do? The other thing I loved besides this stuff was animals. And so I started, how can I work with animals? Should I go work at a zoo? And then I started working at Dover, or volunteering there for about a year, looking at doing an outdoor education program. And during that time, I was working with wildlife rescues. And then Dr. Falling in the back has been a major influence on my life. Started studying animals, getting into it, and then kind of fell into the creation science kind of thing, mainly because of that man back there. And I fell in love with it. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, to be able to look at animals, look at the beautiful design that God put in them. And as I started to study, the gospel for the first time, actually made sense. Because I feel like no one during my life had ever sat down and gone from beginning to end. It was I got a lot of the whole love Jesus because he's good, but it's why is he good? And so starting back at Genesis, and I started studying animals, studying creation, and studying Genesis. I spent a ton of time just diving into that one book, and it has done more for my faith than anything else. And I've had some awesome mentors along the way. And so this talk is the result of that, and this is called Ask the Animals. In Job, it says, ask the animals and they will teach you. Or the birds in the sky and they will tell you. Or speak to the earth and it'll teach you. Or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? And how true is that? When you look at creation, you cannot get there with as much time as you want to get. It is too perfectly designed. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the design of animals. So first animal up is Cracker. Cracker is this beautiful bird right there, and she is a green-winged macaw. This is the second largest species of macaw in the world, and they are absolutely incredible. So these guys have a massive beak. If you look at her beak, it is huge. This beak is designed to crack open the hardest nuts on the planet. You can hand her a walnut and she can break into it like it's nothing. She could also probably break my finger with that beak, and she could snap a broom handle, I believe is what they say, with that beak. She can also chew through a 2x4 in a few hours. They're very, very destructive birds, but that beak is so powerful. Our mouths, just the bottom moves. There's the top and bottom moves, and it gives them a mechanical advantage and gives them a ridiculous amount of power. There are about 17 species of macaw. So right here, this is the second largest, and right over there is Manny, and he is called a Hans macaw, and he is the smallest species of macaw alive today. They are really, really intelligent birds. They say they have the cognitive ability of around a 3 or 4-year-old child, and they have the personality of a 2-year-old. And they live for 80 to 100 years. So they are very long-lived animals, and they are very difficult to work with a lot of the time. We have 9 or 10 macaws right now, and they're all rescues. People get them as pets and then realize that this is not fun. They are also very, very loud. We have birds in our rescue that can scream at 135 decibels, which is close to a jet engine. So their beak. One really, really cool fact about these guys. So they eat mainly nuts, fruits, and seeds, and berries, and leaves, plant matter. But they will eat unripe fruit. And this unripe fruit has toxins in it. And those toxins are enough to kill these birds. So, and especially if they don't do anything about it, it'll build up and it will kill them. My notes aren't showing up. Do y'all care if I have a technical difficulty really quick? What is going on? Guys, I'm sorry. So these guys, they have the knowledge that when they eat that unripe fruit, which a lot of other animals can't eat, so it opens up a whole new food source for them, they know that if they fly over to these clay banks on the sides of these rivers and eat the clay, it'll neutralize the toxin, and they won't die. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. My notes on my side were not showing up. And that way I don't forget stuff. So right here, these are green-winged macaws in Peru, and they're eating clay off that bank. And so as they eat that clay, that'll neutralize the toxins, and it lets them eat that unripe fruit. If they ate the unripe fruit and didn't eat that, they would die. It's very hard to evolve something. It's very hard to learn from your mistakes when your mistakes kill you. I think we can all agree with that. So how do you learn that behavior? That's something that God put in these animals to be able to survive. God thought of absolutely everything when he made creation, and he made it perfect. And he gave them the ability to adapt to situations so they can survive. These guys, Manny right over here is the Hans macaw, and you can see the variation between these two birds. It's pretty significant. So, Charles Darwin said, first, why, if species have descended from other species by fine gradation, do we not everywhere see innumerable transition forms? Why is not all of nature in confusion instead of the species being, as we see them, well defined? When we look at nature, it is very well defined. And the reason why we don't see those innumerable transition forms is because evolution is a lie. Evolution is a phenomenal lie, but when you look at the actual science, it cannot happen, and it has been proven that it cannot happen. When you look at animals, you can see that they are designed and they are well defined. So in Genesis, it says, and God said, let the waters teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems and moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful, and increase in number, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and morning the fifth day. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. And God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So it says according to its kind. What is a kind of animal? In modern scientific classification, we don't use that word kind, but it typically is going to fall somewhere around the family level. And that goes up or down a little bit, but typically that's going to be where it's at. So we have parrots. There are over 400 species of parrot. And they're going to break up into potentially as little as 4 different kinds of animals, like a biblical kind. I personally would break them down into a little bit smaller groups, just by some of their characteristics and working with them. But you could potentially go down to 4 kinds, and they diversified from those original 4 pairs of birds. So these are a few different types. You have your cockatoo kind. So this is Simon, Shirley, and Ellie Mae. They're all 3 different species of cockatoo, but you can see they have that beautiful crest. And that's one of their defining characteristics. The bird in the middle right there is Shirley, and she's the one that can scream at about 135 decibels. And it is awful. Not only can she does. And she does it a lot. But the cockatoos are really cool birds. They have a lot of amazing features. They produce a really fine dust, and that dust waterproofs them. And then these guys are oil birds. They have a gland called an earipygial gland. And if you've ever seen a duck grabbing its back and then combing through the feathers, they're getting oil on their beak, and they're putting it through their feathers to waterproof them. God thought of everything. They have to have that from the very beginning, or ducks don't work. So your macaw kind. Cracker is the second largest. Manny is the smallest. Great diversity, but they're the same kind of animal. These would be a created kind, and they might not have looked like this on the ark, but when they came off, God gave them incredible genetic diversity. So they can change in appearance, but they will always stay as that kind. These guys are never going to turn into a different type of, even parrot. They're never going to be a cockatoo, no matter how much you try, because they're not the same kind. And with Darwinian evolution, you'd expect to see some kind of mishmash transition forms, and we don't see that. Stuff is well defined. It's well defined. He's like, why is it so well defined? Because God created it, and he created it well-defined with order. Also, within your different kinds of animals, you can get hybrids. So if you breed a blue and gold macaw with a scarlet macaw, you get what they call a Catalina macaw. So this is Brutus right here on the bottom, and he's a Catalina macaw. He looks different than both of the parents, but he is, guess what? Still a macaw. God thought of everything, and a lot of times these hybrids will be sterile, so they can't reproduce. And usually if you can do another generation, they can't go super far, so there are some limitations on how much you can cross these species. Super cool. Some other kinds that you would recognize, you have the equine kind. So you're like horses, zebras, donkeys. You can hybridize them. You can get a zonkey, which is a zebra and a donkey, or a zorse. Your cat kind. And some of these kinds could break up into maybe 2 different kinds within that like group of animals. But I'd say your equines are pretty well defined. Your cats are pretty well defined. Your dogs are very well defined. If you look at a dog, if you've never seen this dog before and I show you a dog, most of you are going to be like, that's a dog. Because it has a dogness to it. Or a cat has a catness to it. And that's kind of your kinds. You have that horseness. And you can look at these animals and you're like, oh, that's a cat. I've never seen that species, but it's a cat. Really cool. Then we'll move on. And then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. We are set apart from the animals. We are not created after our kind. We're created in the image of God, to rule over creation and to steward it well. And a lot of people, you evolved from a monkey. If you put in evolution, it ruins the entire gospel from all of it. Because we are created in the image of God. That is a thing that sets us apart from the rest of creation. We are the pinnacle of his creation, and he loves us. That's why he came and sent his son to die for us. And then, guys, I'm going to blow your minds right here. Male and female, he created them. He told us how many genders there are. There are 2. And guess what? Science has confirmed it. XX and XY. Your feelings don't define reality. I'm so sorry, everybody. And God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and morning the 6th day. So we're going to transition to our next animal. Are you guys ready to meet this guy? He's one of my favorites. My wife usually assists me and gets my animals ready for me. So this is Alex the owl. And Alex is a Eurasian eagle owl. They're one of the largest species of owl in the world. They're from Europe, Asia, and Northern Africa. And they are absolutely incredibly designed animals. We're going to start and just talk about a few of his features from the top of his head down to his toes. So if you look at the top of his head, he has these little tufts on top. They are called ear tufts, and they have nothing to do with hearing. They're a mood indicator. So when he slicks them back, that means he's in a bad mood. When he stands them up, that means he's in a really good mood. And his ears are right here on the side of his head. So if you can find the ears on your head, you could find his. And that disc shape of his face, that channels sound to his ear and gives him incredible hearing. His hearing's about 10 times more sensitive than ours. And then we'll look at his eyeballs. Eyeballs are like the most defining feature of the owl. People always are like, wow, look how big his eyes are. His eyes are huge. If your eyes were the same size as his compared to the size of your head, your eyes would be about the size of grapefruits. You'd have really big eyes. And not only are they huge, they're also cylinders. So they go back into their head, and his eyeballs are immobile. He cannot look side to side like we can. So God gave him the ability to rotate his head. Let's see how far we can go. Maybe. Oh, you want to eat that little bird? He can rotate his head 270 degrees. You guys can only do that once. And he can do it whenever he wants. And he can turn his head all the way backwards and look up. He can look wherever he wants to because God gave him an incredibly designed neck that lets him look wherever he wants. These guys, their vision is about 5 times sharper than ours. He could see text on a newspaper from about across a football field. Really, really good vision. They're also nearsighted, so when they get up close, they have a hard time seeing, but they have little bristles. They have little sensory feathers around their mouth, so when they're up trying to eat something, they can feel what they're trying to eat. So he has these big, beautiful eyes. My favorite feature of the owl. Owls are the only species of bird that have this. On the leading edge of their primary feathers, so right here is that fringe. That is a picture from Alex. And that fringe, when they flap, it breaks up the air turbulence and gives these guys really quiet, if not silent, flight. So most birds, every other type of bird that flies, has a hard edge on their wing. And when they fly, can y'all hear that in the back? It makes quite a bit of noise. If you listen to that little green bird fly, makes 30 times more noise than this guy. Alex has a fringe. And when he flaps, can y'all hear that in the back? Really, really muffles that sound. Absolute incredible design. And they need that. These guys are ambush hunters. So they rely on stealth to catch their food. They're not very fast. He can fly about 35 miles an hour. But he's so quiet that he can swoop down and grab his prey. They mainly hunt at dusk and dawn. And they are kind of the dumb jock of the bird of prey world. They are not the smartest, but they are absolutely incredibly designed. And they don't have to figure out how to catch their food because they are so good at it. And then we'll get down to his legs. A lot of people think they have really small legs. I get texts, people being like, oh, I saw a picture of an owl and they were like picking it up. Alex's legs are pretty massive. He has about a 5-foot wingspan, and his grip strength is about 800 pounds per square inch. An adult German Shepherd's bite is about 500 pounds per square inch, and a human averages between like 90 and 100 pounds per square inch. So he's 8 to 10 times stronger than the average human, and he has an 1.5 inch long dagger on each one of those toes. These guys can take anything from like a small rodent to a fox or a small deer. They can take down some really big prey. And they are perfectly designed to do what they do. And then probably my favorite, just like bird fact. This is absolutely thought through incredible design. Birds have to replace their feathers. A feather is a dead structure. It's like a hair. It grows out of a follicle. It grows out of a feather follicle. And when they replace their feathers, they do it about once a year. He'll go into a molt and they fall out. But if they fell out just randomly, if he lost too many on one side, he wouldn't be able to fly. So God programmed them to molt in matched pairs. So if you lay out his wings are absolutely symmetrical. You can map out one side and the other wing will be the exact mirror image of that wing. When they molt, they lose one feather on this side, they will lose the same feather on the other side within about 2 days. And that keeps them balanced. When I go into his aviary and he's in molt, I can pull out mirror image feathers pretty much every time I go in there. And if I don't pull it out that day, I'll probably get it the next day. I mean, you can't evolve that. Because the first time you don't have that and you have a molt where you molt randomly, you can't fly, you die, you don't have owls or half of these birds. God thought of everything. That's incredible design. If you don't believe in God, that fact right there, I think is pretty strong evidence why you should. Because that is thought through design. And birds. We're not going to go in this today, but they're thought to have evolved from dinosaurs or reptiles. You can't get there. The entire avian structure, the entire avian body is designed for flight, down to the last little thing, because flight is very hard to accomplish. These guys are masters of the air. We cannot create anything close to what a bird can do with our aircrafts. We have those little drones. They can't do half of what this guy can do. Absolutely perfectly designed for flight. Would anybody like to guess how much Alex weighs? 20 pounds? 12? 3 pounds? My average guess is probably 20 to 25 pounds. He weighs 5 pounds. He's designed for flight. They have hollow bones with struts that go through them. It makes them lightweight yet strong. Their feathers are like foam-filled tubes. They're lightweight, strong, and flexible. I mean, everything about this animal is designed, and it has to be there from the beginning, or you do not have this species of animal. They are incredible. And we're just scratching the surface today. We're not going in depth. We can talk about feathers for like 2 hours, and y'all would not enjoy it probably, but I would. I really like birds. All right, we're going to move on to our next animal. Oh, thank you. All right, so our next animal, this is one of my favorite species. They're really, really cool. And the design is absolutely phenomenal. We're going to look at one feature of this animal and talk about it. So this right here, does anybody know what that is? This is a New Caledonian giant giant gecko, giant forest gecko. Everyone calls them a lychee. This is the largest species of gecko in the world, and about 60% of geckos have these sticky feet. So he can climb straight up a glass wall like it's nothing. They have incredible feet. So the design of their feet, everything has to be there from the very beginning or they don't work. Right here, if we look, you can kind of see right there, those lines are called lamellae. And those lamellae are clusters of millions of microscopic hairs called setae. They're about the 1,000th the size of a human hair, the diameter of a human hair. And those clusters of them right there. So they have millions and millions, if not billions, of these things on the bottom of their feet. Those branch off into split ends. So each one of those tiny hairs has split ends. And the end of those split ends are kind of suction cup shaped. And they are called spatula. When these guys are walking around, they like suction cup to molecules, basically. They work off something called van der Waals forces, which is a super tiny attraction between molecules. And it's barely enough to hold 2 atoms together, but they have billions of them on their feet. And it gives them the ability to climb across a ceiling. So they like adhere to that stuff. But that grip strength is so strong. When they put their foot down, if they didn't have the neuromuscular control and the proper design of the foot, they would get stuck and they could not pick that foot back up. Their feet are like reversed. So most animals, their toes go down. These guys roll their toes up. And so every time they step, they'll roll those pads off and detach a few at a time. That way they can pick their foot up. I mean, how do you explain that? They also have found geckos' feet that are supposedly 100 million years old, and they are identical to today's gecko's feet. They haven't changed at all. And the reason they haven't changed is because God made them this way at the beginning. But when you hold these guys, they like suction cup to you. Absolutely an incredible animal. They also have lamellae on their tail. So back here, and they use that as like a partially prehensile tail. So when they're climbing around, they'll hold on, and they can also lose that tail. So if a predator gets after them, they can detach that tail, and then they can regrow it. Really, really cool. I love the design of the gecko's foot. It screams of a creator because you have to have everything in place at once for it to work. Next, this is Bubbles. So Bubbles is a Cuvier's dwarf caiman. This is the smallest species of crocodilian in the world. They get about 5 feet long when they're full grown. And they are just incredibly designed animals. They are perfectly designed to do what they do. So on his head, if you look up on his head, on the side, he has his ear right behind his eyeball. His eyes are also on the top of his head. And he can close his ears off. So when he's swimming, he can shut his ears so he doesn't get water in his ears. They also have a palatal valve in the back of their throat. So when he's underwater catching fish, he's not swallowing a ton of water. He keeps that closed and they breathe through their nostrils. They also have flaps in their nostrils. And they can keep their nostrils closed when they're underwater. So that way they don't get water in their head. They also have built-in goggles. They have a nictating membrane. When they go underwater, they can shut this clear eyelid. It's a third eyelid. And that is built-in goggles for them. They are perfectly designed. They need all these features to be able to function in the aquatic environment that they live in. They can also replace their teeth up to 50 times each in their lifespan. So if a tooth breaks off, they can grow a new tooth. Wouldn't that be nice, people? Why didn't we keep that when we evolved from nothing? That'd be great. Yeah, so they have really sharp teeth. These guys love to eat fish. They'll eat small mammals, crustaceans. He loves him some shrimp and salmon and mice. That's what we typically feed him in captivity. And so when they're in the water, they can keep their entire body under the water and just stick their head out, and everything they need is out of the water. They can see, hear, smell, and get ready to grab whatever they're trying to hunt. They also have this huge tail, and it's flat like an oar, and it makes them very, very quick when they're swimming in the water. This is also the only species. They do spend quite a bit of time on land. They don't have webbed feet, and they are the only species of crocodilian that does not have webbed feet. This is found in South America, and they have a lot of osteoderms. So under their scutes, these scales on their back and sides, there's a bony plate, and that bony plate is armor. I mean, when you touch him, he's hard. And that also protects him from poachers because there are so many osteoderms in his skin that you can't tan their hide. So people don't poach this particular species of crocodilian because they can't use it for much. There's not a lot of meat on them because they don't get very big. And then their hide's kind of useless because there's too many of those little bony plates to function. But these guys, can you imagine if they didn't have that palatal valve and they're trying to catch fish underwater? They wouldn't be able to. They're perfectly designed to do what they do. And then, oh no, I forgot something. Oh well, we can do it without pictures. I'm going to need a volunteer for this next one. This is going to be fun for me and everybody but the one. Gail Williams, could you join me on stage, please? That would be great. Could I get a round of applause for our voluntold? I've done this to her so many times, I need to pick on someone new. I mean, give someone an experience of a lifetime. Okay, so I need y'all to be really quiet. We got to minimize risk of her getting bit. We don't want to get bit. So I need you to stand like this and go like this. And then you can't peek and don't drop it.
Eyes closed?
Yeah. Eyes closed. So just so y'all know, this is full grown. This is as big as they get. So he can't get any bigger. He is a full grown male. Ooh, ow. Whoa. Fussy. Fussy, fussy. Oh my goodness. All right, so this is the only venomous snake. You can open your eyes now. This is the only venomous snake that we keep here. And not only are they venomous, their fangs are in the back of their mouth. Do you love them? This is creation. We're learning. Remember how I said I was a hands-on learner? I'm just letting you experience this.
Oh my gosh.
Do you love them?
No, I don't love them.
Do you want to give them just a little kiss? Aw, round of applause for our voluntold. Thank you. So this is one of my favorite species of snakes. They are really cool. He is a rear-fanged venomous snake, but he's not harmful to humans. If he bites you, he has to chew on you for a long time to get that venom into you. And then if he gets venom in you, it is pretty much harmless. It's like less than a bee sting. So, and he is full grown. These guys are from the western side of the United States. We have eastern hognoses here. These guys, when they grab their prey, they chew on it, and that venom will seep into that wound and help subdue their prey. And these guys have a really cool defense mechanism. So if you come up on one of these, the first thing they do is they flatten out their head and they hiss and they puff and they'll strike at you. But when they strike, they typically won't even open their mouth. They're not trying to bite you, they're trying to get you to leave them alone. If that doesn't work, they will musk, which is a really smelly liquid, and they'll musk and they'll flip over on their back and they'll play dead. And they'll play dead, and hopefully that predator will be like, oh, that thing's sick, we're going to leave it alone. But they know that if they play dead, a lot of times they can escape the predator because they are so small and their venom's not going to do anything. So they don't have a good way to get away from things. So God gave them that ability to, one, mimic a venomous snake, and if that doesn't work, they die. They play dead, and they'll lay on their back. If you flip them over, they'll flip back over on their back. And they are definitely good at playing possum. Really cool snake. Really fun. We're going to move on to our next one. We're going to talk about some of the other amazing design features that are found in snakes. So this is a really cool snake. This is Alfredo. Alfredo is a piebald ball python. So he has a genetic mutation, and it deletes all of the color in parts of their body. So half of the snake is solid white. The other half is what it should look like normally in the wild. This is a mutation. It is harmful to them because it loses a lot of their camouflage. They can survive like this in the wild, but it is pretty rare to find them in the wild. There's like one population that they know of in Africa where they're found. These guys are really cool. They're the smallest species of python in the world. And a female will max out at about 6 feet long. And these guys are a constrictor. So they bite their prey, they wrap around it really tight and squeeze it, give it a nice hug until it dies, and then they swallow it whole. Their jaws are incredible. When we feed these guys, we feed him something about as thick as the middle of his body. And if you look at his neck and head, it's a lot smaller than that. So how does he swallow that? It's because God gave them incredible jaws. They have ligaments back here and in the front. So he can open up his mouth almost 180 degrees, and then that back can open up too. So he can make his mouth really, really large. He can swallow something like 5 times the size of his head. That's like us taking a watermelon and swallowing it whole. And then the front of their jaws can split apart. And so that helps them be able to swallow something really big. So when you see them eating, their jaw will be like straight out. And then they use those jaws independently to pull that food back into their head so they can swallow it whole, because they don't have arms to rip it up. Super incredible animals. And then if you look at their tongue, you'll see them flicking that tongue in and out. And that's kind of how they taste the air. So when he's looking for food, he's going to taste the air. They have an organ in the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson's organ. And that organ is like two little holes. And so every time that tongue goes in, he'll flick the two little forks up into those two holes, and it sends the little scent particles that he collected to his brain, and that's how he finds his food. These guys are nocturnal. They hunt at night, and they also can hunt in pitch black because they have heat-sensing pits. So these guys can see body heat. They can see an infrared. On the top of his lip, he has a bunch of little holes. And those organs are super sensitive to heat, so he can track food by that, and he can see the body heat of a small mammal, which is what this guy is going to eat. Absolute incredible design. If they didn't have the jaw, they'd have a hard time doing what they do. They wouldn't be able to eat very big prey because their mouths can't get around it. Very, very incredible design. And they do have skeletons. A lot of people think that they're not vertebrates, but they are. They have a skeleton and a lot of ribs. And this guy's about 5 years old, so he probably won't get that much bigger. Really beautiful animal. But for evolution to be true, you have to have mutations that are beneficial, and you have to have a lot of them to be able to go. Mutations, a lot of them don't do anything. A lot of them are harmful, and almost none of them are beneficial. This is a mutation, pretty minor, pretty common. Around here, you'll see deer that are pied. You'll see turkey that are pied. I've seen hawks that are pied, pigeons, all that stuff. It's not a super rare mutation, but it typically is definitely not helpful. So it's either going to do nothing or it's going to make a deer a lot easier to spot. That's why you don't see them that often. I think 1 out of 100 turkey are born pied, but you don't see them very often because they typically are going to have a harder time making it. So the scales. Scales are like folds in the skin. So if you take your shirt and you fold it over that, that's kind of what a scale is. Whereas a feather is going to grow out of a follicle. A scale is just kind of that fold in the skin. And then right over here, those are the heat sensing pits. So if you look on his nose, you can see all those little pink dots, and those are the pits that they use to see heat. One really cool thing about these guys is they do lay eggs. They're oviparous. And these guys will lay quite a few eggs. And when they lay their eggs, they'll egg brood. So they'll sit on top of their eggs. But with a reptile egg, once you lay it and set it down, the blood vessels and stuff set, and you can't move it. If you rotate it, the egg dies. So if you put a snake crawling around on eggs, they would all move and they would all die. So God knew that. These eggs, when they're laid, they stick together and they cement into a big ball. So that egg, you can just pick up one egg and all of them will come with it. And that's absolutely crucial to this species. Because if you don't have that and these snakes crawl over their eggs, every one of those eggs is going to move, as far as I'm concerned. They're all going to roll and they all die. Pythons shouldn't exist. Because if you don't have eggs that stick together, that seems like a pretty minor thing. But it would wipe these out. Because they sit on those eggs. And if they did, and those eggs weren't stuck together, I bet 99% of them would die. When you feel one of these move, you'll understand more. But if a snake crawls over a ball, it's going to roll. They have to stick together. These guys primarily feed on mammals, and they eat meat. So originally God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food. Most of the animals that we looked at past the parrots were carnivores. They eat meat. Why is that? God did not create them that way. Why is it? And we find that answer in Genesis. In Genesis 2, it says, And the Lord God commanded the man, You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will certainly die. Guess what he did? When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree, we're skipping over to Genesis 3, 6 and 7, was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of the both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. I've heard quite a few people say, like, if God's good, then why did my mom die? Or why is this bad thing happening? And the reason God is still good in this crappy, screwed up world is because when you track sin back, you don't track it back to God. You track it back to us. You track it back to Adam's disobedience, not God created this crappy world. No. God said, don't do this. You will certainly die if you do it. We did it, and this is what happened. In Romans, it says, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. The wages of sin is death, and the penalty when you sin is death. Romans 5:19 says, for just as through the disobedience of one man, the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of one man, many were made righteous. Adam disobeyed God and cursed the entire world, but God sent his son to die on the cross for us because that penalty has to be paid. He said it had to be paid, and he is a God of his word. And so it has to be paid. Death is the penalty. But for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. He provided a way out. He sent his only son as the perfect sacrifice for this so that he could redeem us. And it's through his grace. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not by works so that no one can boast. We can't do it ourselves. God had to win that battle for us. And Romans 10:9 says, if you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your hearts that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. This is good news. We are not up a creek anymore because God sent his son to die. Adam ruined this perfect world. But God pursued us and loved us so much that he would make the ultimate sacrifice so that we could have a restored relationship with him. One of my favorite quotes is by Sherlock Holmes. He says, I see no more than you, but I've trained myself to notice what I see. We need to train ourselves to notice what we see. When you look at nature, it points to a creator. We need to train ourselves to see what God has done and to see what God is doing. Because if we're not paying attention, we're going to miss it. And looking and seeing what God is doing is incredible. It is absolutely incredible. Matthew 10 says, are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. Even the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. He didn't say he knows how many hairs are on your head. He said they're all numbered, so he knows which ones fall out. That is a God who cares and loves his creation. Absolutely loves his creation. I work out at Dover Gorge, and I recognize quite a few faces. But out at the camp, we do summer programs. We do a lot of retreats and special events. We have our outdoor education program. We run a 9-month discipleship gap year program. And we also have a really fun new project coming up called the Christmas Train. So we bought this train from Oklahoma, and it will tell the true story of creation, the true story of Christmas from creation to resurrection on a 20-minute train ride. And it's like going through a life-size storybook. It is going to be awesome, and it should be running in 2024. It is going to be incredible. And then we also run Genesis Animal Sanctuary. And that's where we get all of our animals. We run a rescue, and then our rescue, some of those animals make it into our ambassador program. And we go around to churches and schools and events, and we get to teach about creation. And animals have been such an amazing avenue because they open up so many doors for us to be able to share the gospel with people and people that we typically wouldn't have access to. And I can take a bird into public, I can walk through a parking lot, and I will talk to usually more than one person. It's been an incredible avenue for us to be able to talk about God with people. It's very easy to go from the creation to the creator. Am I still alive? Hello, can y'all hear me? I think I touched about something. But yeah, my wife and I, we raise money as missionaries at Doe River Gorge. And if you'd be interested in getting involved with us, give us a call. We'd love to sit down and talk with you more about what we're doing. Because it's been absolutely incredible to see God work through the animals, through our camps and all the stuff that's going on at Doe River. And with the Christmas train and all that stuff, we're going to have a lot larger reach to people. So it is time for our Q&A.
All right, let's give Michael a hand to start with, okay? Okay, again, rules of the game. You can ask a question, don't give the answer, okay? We don't want to know what you think. We want to know what he thinks. All right, I'm trying to say that kind.
Does the parrot talk, and how old is he or she?
I do not know how old she is. She can talk. They have it's called their syrinx, and it lets them make just about any noise that you can think of. She can say, hi, hello, cracker, what you doing, what's up, how you doing. She has a pretty good vocabulary, but it's pretty rare that she talks. She'll say hello, and she'll say yum when you give her a peanut. Past that, she doesn't talk a whole lot.
I wondered if you put all these animals in a small room together, which one would be the last one standing?
Oh, good question. So Alex would be the last one. He would be the only one standing. He's our top guy. So he's a monster.
Someone else?
Does Alex like me? So they're kind of cat-ish, whereas like the macaws, they bond really hard. So if I gave one of my macaws away, they would be depressed. They would not be happy. Alex, probably wouldn't care. He knows me and he probably likes me more than most people, but he doesn't really like me. He tolerates me. Yes. And his name is Alex, Owlex. Alex.
So you talked about these animals having strong claws, strong beak,
Yeah.
and then a bite that they'll bite you and inject some poison and then squeeze you to death. Why didn't any of these animals go into the attack mode while you were holding on to them?
When do they?
No, why didn't they do that to you?
Why didn't they? So with a lot of our animals, we work with them a lot. So the birds can be tamed down. You can tame them and get them where they won't bite. Occasionally they'll nip at you, but typically they're not going to bite. Alex, the owl, is imprinted, so he thinks he's a human. And so unless you stick your finger in his face, he's fine being held. He likes people. The snakes are tamed. We handle them a lot, so they're used to being handled. We handle them all the time. And then there's just the way you handle them can increase your chance of getting bit. Like if you're being really jerky and doing stuff that their prey does, then they'll bite you. If I pet the birds and then I pick up one of the snakes, they can smell it on my hand and they'll mistake me for food. But with the snakes, they're typically not going to go after me just because they know they can't eat me and they're not interested in, I'm not a threat. The caiman, he took me about 1.5 years of working with him pretty much every day before I could pick him up. And if I mess up at all, I would not be shocked if he bit me. He might just, and it's not fun. He's gotten me twice so far. I'm sure there's a few more in there. But snake bites typically aren't that bad from the non-venomous variety. I've been bitten probably over 1,000 times by different snakes. I'd rather get bit by one of those snakes than stung by a bee.
Over here.
Yeah, the snake that lays the eggs that all stick together. What's the gestation period of the eggs? How long does she have to sit on them?
It's about 59 days.
And so she doesn't move during all that time?
She'll move and crawl around, but she'll sit on them to help regulate the temperature. But she'll crawl off of them if she needs to, but she'll sit on the eggs quite a bit. Yes. Did that answer your question?
Okay.
I believe so. Most of the pythons do lay eggs.
Are your birds ever caged where they can mate? Have you had any offspring? Are you a grandpa?
I am not a grandpa, so we work with rescues. I try not to breed any of our birds because there's ton that need to be rescued. So I typically don't have a use in breeding them. They are housed. Some of them are housed together, but we've never accidentally had eggs. Our doves will lay eggs. And we've had some baby doves. But for the parrots, we try to keep males and females separate if possible.
I kind of have two questions. Do you have a place where people, citizens, can go and look at all your birds and at Doe River Gorge? Could you tell us a little more about the train and how that's going to work?
Yeah, so currently on Saturdays we do a creation encounter and we bring the animals to the gorge and just kind of have them open and people can come and look. We have the birds out in the woods on free stands, so they're just chilling. And then we'll have different reptiles and animals out throughout the day. We keep all this stuff at my house. So we have a facility right next to our house. And we transitioned from animals being at the camp to animals being next to our house. One, because we got the facility to do it. And then two, I have to work with these animals twice a day, 7 days a week. And I'm the main one who does it. So I was having to go out to work, which is only 15 minutes, but 15 minutes there and back twice a day is annoying. So we moved everybody to the house, and our facility is private. We occasionally do tours, but we're not open to the public just because we're not set up to be. And then the train. So 2024, between November and Christmas, we'll be running the Christmas train. And it runs for 4 hours a night. And you can hop on the train and go through and see these 40 by 20 billboards. And it takes you through, with audio, through the entire story from creation to resurrection. And it's pretty impressive. There'll also be some really good food out there and some other fun activities. And we'll probably be doing animal presentations and doing stuff like that out there too. Is there any more specific things about the train?
So it's next year that it's going to be after.
Yes, 2024 is the goal. So right now we are tearing apart the camp. If you haven't been out there, it's pretty unrecognizable. There's new roads, and other roads that we had are 20 feet under dirt. Putting in new track. So right now they're installing 2.2 miles of track and restoring 2 steam engines. And so that stuff they're starting to lay it on Monday. And then we'll get the track in, and then we have 2 buildings that they're starting to build. And then once they get those up, we'll be good to go for phase 1 of Christmas Train.
Right here.
We have zip lines. We have all the stuff. We have a 3-acre lake with inflatables and zip lines and blobs and a white sand beach. We have 3 miles of the Doe River Gorge riverfront. And I guess you can double that because we have both sides of it. And it's absolutely spectacular. Yeah.
Are you in any way affiliated with Answers in Genesis?
I am not. I don't know who asked that. I am not affiliated with Answers in Genesis. I work with David Reeves Ministries. If you haven't heard about his stuff, he's in Nashville, and they just got a 110,000 square foot museum that they're moving into, and I've done a few projects with him. David Reeves Ministries, and it's RIVES, and then the museum is called the Wonders Center and Science Museum. And it's pretty spectacular. They have one of the top 10 planetariums in the world. and a lot of really cool exhibits. And we have animals on exhibit down there also.
Anyone else?
Yes. So what was that?
Where do you go to do that?
So if you hop on our website, you can get to our link where we raise money. My wife and I raise money to do what we do at the Gorge. So we raise money as missionaries to pay for the animals and then to go do events. So we do, if you are interested, we'd love to sit down and talk with you about it. But we need people to be praying for us for open doors, because getting into places is one thing, because we have to be able to get there to be able to share the gospel with people. So getting in, if you have like events or something and you want to have us out, please let us know, because we're rolling. We're looking for events to start doing. So usually during the winter we're pretty slow, but we probably do a few hundred presentations a year. So we do quite a few presentations. And I have business cards up here where you can find where to donate. That is Munch. He is a bearded dragon. I didn't bring him today, but he's one of our ambassador animals. They are super cool. They have big old spikes on their sides, and that's what they use for defense. And they're called a bearded dragon because they have that big old beard, and they'll fluff it out when they get threatened. And then they'll pancake out if like a predator's trying to get them, and they can shift side to side really quick. And they have these big old spikes on the side that'll cut whatever's getting next to them. They're really cool. They're a lizard found in Australia.
Michael, do you do this presentation to the kids who attend summer camp during the summer and teach them about creation?
Yeah, so we do different presentations for different events. So usually during the week we'll have like animal encounters, so kids can come up and they can like touch and experience the animal up close. And then usually I teach during the Little Kids Week, the Junior Adventure Quest. And we go through creation, and that's where we start, because you have to start at the beginning for the end to make sense. So we usually start at the beginning, and we do use animals and other random pointless skills I've acquired for that. And then, yeah, does that answer your question? But yeah, the animals are out at the camp quite a bit.
Have you ever had turtles?
Yes, we have a tortoise and we have 2 painted river terrapins, and they are very messy.
Anyone else?
Yeah. And I have a lot of these guys in my PowerPoint if you want to. I can pull them up.
What's the largest animal you have, or a snake, or whatever?
The largest animal that we have that we use for programs is probably our parrots are one of the largest, the owl's one of the largest, and then we have some boa constrictors that are also like 6+ feet that we use consistently. And then the caiman's gonna be one of our biggest. The biggest animals we have at our facility are horses. So, which my wife does riding lessons. And so we have that avenue too, but that's not part of our like traveling education. Currently, we just have too many animals. We're not accepting a lot of the animals unless it's something we really need or it's something that really needs to be rehomed. So if we get like Humane Societies calling and they confiscated stuff, we'll try to take it. And then anything illegal, like there's some animals I just can't own and we don't take that stuff. But past that, we mainly work with birds and reptiles. And if mammals came in and we had space, we would consider it. But we work with exotics, we don't work with local birds.
All right, one more back here.
I didn't catch where Alex is native to.
He's from Europe, Asia, and Northern Africa. They're one of the most widespread species of owl in the world. And they're very similar to the great horned. What is happening? Any other questions?
I think Gail was wondering where she'd be able to get her own pet snake.
Yeah, they're pretty common. You can get them just about anywhere. I might have some spares I'll bring over for you.
I think you ruined her for life. All right, let's give Michael another big hand here, if you would.